In November of 1963, a little unknown television show called Doctor Who was first broadcast to the small screen in the UK. Like many shows at the time, Doctor Who was made entirely in black and white, with the BBC not using colour cameras until the late 1960s and early 1970s. But now, 60 years on, Doctor Who's second ever adventure, The Daleks, has been released in a brand new version. This story, which originally aired from the 21st of December 1963 to the 1st of February 1964, in 7 25-minute episodes with a total runtime of 175 minutes, has now been re-edited, rescored, and cut down to one 75-minute feature-length episode in full colour. So, having seen it, there's only one thing left to ask. Was it worth it? Well, let's discuss it.
I'm the Doctor.
Fantastic. I reverse the polarity of the neutron flow.
Have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension?
So the all-new physical media release of the colour version of the Daleks has finally arrived. Now for many fans this is going to be the first time we're actually able to view this new edition, because I gotta say, us international Doctor Who fans have really received the short end of the stick with all this new exclusive content that is only available through BBC iPlayer and can't be streamed anywhere else.
But it's not bad!
Like this new colorization of the Daleks, like the Tales of the TARDIS. Granted, the clips are actually all on YouTube, but you still can't experience those full episodes the way they were intended to be experienced. And there was an all-complete different version of an adventure in space and time that they released. I think that they cut a lot of things because of An Unearthly Child, and they tacked in this ending with Judy Gatwa, but the fact is we can't view that anywhere. International fans have totally been snubbed. And here in Australia, there is absolutely nowhere where you can stream classic Doctor Who. Now, I am one of the lucky people who actually can take episodes I want off my shelf and watch them anytime I want. But for anyone else who might be just mildly curious to check out Doctor Who for the first time, or even those people that just want to revisit those episodes that don't own them physically, well, you can't do that unless you have some sort of VPN. So all I can say is thank God for physical media. So the story follows the Doctor, Susan, Ian and Barbara arriving in a petrified jungle on the planet Skaro, where they soon discover two alien races, the peaceful humanoid Thals and the evil Daleks encased in the metallic travel machines, who just want to stop at nothing to see the Thals exterminated. That was probably the most vague plot synopsis I've ever given, but you know, that is pretty much the story. So onto the actual colorization itself. What was it like? How did it fare up? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Now, let me preface, I'm not going to be knocking any of the people or persons responsible who actually worked on this new colorization and brought this to life, because it's a very remarkable achievement. But for me, though, there's quite a lot of artistic merit they've taken with this new colorization. The interior of the Dalek city has lots of different vivid colours, you know, lots of purples and yellows. You don't really associate the Daleks with having this eye for bright, vivid colours. It's like the Daleks themselves got an outside decorator to paint and jazz up their entire control room. I do really like, though, the new look they gave to Skaro's sky. Like during the day, it's this very deep red, and nightfall comes and it goes to this dark green. And they have new CGI as well that they've implanted. Like the opening shot looks great, where they pan down from the exterior of the Dalek city and we see the TARDIS materialize. That looks great. And then they added the laser effects to the Daleks when they're exterminating. You know, that looks great. But other than that, though, I thought it was pretty stunning to look at. For me, though, the colorization is one thing, but cutting more than half the story down is, I think, very detrimental in this new edition. The way that it's all edited together and how some scenes are cut down or removed entirely is, for me, the biggest thing I had problems with. They seem to have done as much as they possibly can to try and transform this into a very new series-like episode. But for me, it becomes more of like this Frankenstein-like creature, and doesn't really work because it's classic Who, and trying to make it into new Who isn't going to work because of how different it actually is. Like the music is very, very in your face. Like they've tried to heighten or intensify the mood of a scene in a moment with this very bombastic music telling you that this is a very tense and powerful or suspenseful scene or whatever it's trying to be achieving in that moment, because the music itself is way too over the top, and there's a lot of instances where the music will actually drown out the dialogue in a scene, or there's times where the music really doesn't quite fit well with what we're necessarily seeing on screen, and it feels a bit off. And almost every single little thing now has been given further sound effects overlaid on top, to the point where I found it almost comical with the amount of sound effects that they've tried to add on to things. I found myself, with a lot of instances throughout this new edition that the overall tone of the Daleks had been completely changed, to the point where, you have scenes where that original tension and suspense has been sucked away, and it's completely changed how that scene originally was because of this overly dramatic music, which I think ruins a lot of this, especially in the first scene where the Daleks actually are seen for the first time. That whole sequence is completely altered. Like, you go back and you watch the original scene, and then you compare it with this new one. It feels like all of that horror, shock value, suspense, the tension had been all removed because of this new over-the-top dramatic music, which is too, in my opinion, bombastic. And then there's a lot that's either cut down or condensed to try and fit to this new runtime. And the way some of it is just all edited together, oh my god. Like, there's a scene where Ian poses as a Dalek so everyone can try and escape the city. That whole sequence is done in this really weird montagey way, compiling it all together into what feels like seconds. And the flashbacks, now this is something that really offended me as a viewer, because they must have thought that the person watching this is only going to have a 2 to 3 second attention span. So what they're going to do is they're going to put in flashback sequences of something that we literally just saw 3 to 4 minutes ago, just in case you might have on the slim chance forgotten what you literally saw 3 minutes ago. It's such a bizarre creative choice they decided to add, and is just ultimately distracting and irritating every time they go to it. The first one was fine because of how they utilized it. The scene when the Doctor is being interrogated by the Daleks, and they're questioning him about why he and his accomplices are being affected by the radiation on the planet, and the Daleks state that you need drugs to stay alive. And the Doctor then realizes that the box of vials that was left outside the doors of the TARDIS were the actual drugs to prevent them from getting the radiation sickness that was left there by one of the Thals. So I was fine with that one, because that was a moment of realization for the Doctor. He was working things out. Oh, that's what that was. But all the other ones, like when the Thals talk about their leader that was exterminated.
Remember 10 seconds ago when our leader was just killed?
Yeah.
We don't have time for flashbacks.
They become way too repetitive and distracting, and ultimately they take you out of the moment because of how they have to be reminded of something that's just happened. It's super distracting and really annoying. And there's new dialogue that they recorded with one of the original Dalek voice actors, David Graham, to explain, moments because they were cut down or changed or moved around within the story. Like some things as well, they changed to fit into the continuity of Genesis of the Daleks, like being referred to their origins of their ancient Khaled forefathers, for instance. Like that wasn't in the original story. They were referred to as Dals. But that I really didn't care about. It only became jarring for me, though, when I heard Nick Briggs's Dalek voice, which, it feels very out of place with the original other Daleks they use in this. It's a very new sounding, new series Dalek. But that's a very minor criticism. I don't think anyone else will really be annoyed by that. I did like, though, when some of the Daleks are getting affected by the anti-radiation towards the latter half of the story, how you can tell which Dalek has been affected because of their colour of their iris/lens on the eye stalk, which they made, their iris lens red. That I thought was a really clever way of differentiating and telling, the Daleks apart visually. I thought that was a really clever idea. Now, this being 75 minutes, there's not really a moment where the story can slow down and pause to take a breather, because it's moving at such a very rapid pace due to the fact that so much has been cut. Again, trying to make it into a new series episode. Now, despite all my criticisms and all my opinions that I have, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Wait, what do you mean it doesn't matter? Well, the fact of the matter is that I'm not the desired target audience this is trying to appeal to. This is made to cater towards new series Doctor Who fans who find it like incredibly hard to watch black and white Doctor Who, or just find it difficult to watch classic Doctor Who in general. It's made for those people. You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here with all these new people that you're trying to cater towards and try and change this and transform it into something it's not. New fans that might watch this and have some sort of desire then to want to check out Doctor Who from the classic range just purely based on their enjoyment of this, you know, and they want to check out something, so they decide to check out, I don't know, something like, for example, The Robots of Death. And then they'll have certain expectations of what they're expecting to see, and then they watch it. And they see it's 4 25-minute part episodes, and it's too slow paced, and the special effects look naff, and why does the TARDIS look so weird, and there's almost no music.
What the hell am I looking at?
I mean, I can only imagine their reactions, so I think you kind of run into those sort of problems with the people you're trying to appeal to. Yes, I am in the majority here when I say, you know, the Daleks at 7 episodes is too long. There isn't enough story to justify it going on for 7 episodes. So I was all for them cutting and trimming things out, though I feel that at 75 minutes, too much of the story has been removed, and it's just too excessive with how much they decided to cut. I think that personally it would have worked so much better at 90 to 95 minutes. The colorization, it's stunning to look at, and I would say that if you are a new series Doctor Who fan, then yeah, check it out, sure. But just keep in mind that this new version is nothing like the rest of classic Doctor Who. Now, if you are familiar with the story, or are just a classic Doctor Who fan, or like me, you maybe just want to check out this colorization because you were curious to see how good it actually looked, then I would recommend waiting until this goes on sale and then pick it up. It's not something that I personally can see myself going back too often to want to rewatch. It's not what I would call essential Doctor Who viewing. You know, for me, when it comes to the Daleks' first story, I actually always preferred watching the first Peter Cushing Dalek movie, Doctor Who and the Daleks. The plot is a more streamlined and it's just overall better paced than that of the original 7-part story. You know, I always preferred it over watching the 7-part episode. The one thing for me, though, that I thought was the best thing about this new version was the teaser that they placed at the end, where they give you a little taste of the further adventures of the first Doctor stories in colour. That was quite the spectacle to see, and I am curious to see what the next one is. I think RTD has already stated that they're working on next year's release. For me, I don't think I'm going to be collecting all of these. I'm perfectly fine with watching the original black and white stories. You know, plus they're probably going to be included on the collection range box set anyway, so I don't feel the need to want to double dip, because knowing the fact in the future they're going to put these on the box sets. But overall, you know, I think this new edition, the colorization looks stunning. The edit was too excessive with how much they decided to cut, but there's just really a lot of bizarre editing choices. The flashback sequences for me were very distracting and take you out of the moment. The music, you know, drowns out a lot of scenes. It's just not something that I can see myself personally going back too often to want to revisit this. And what story do I think should be given this new color treatment? I think there's some stories that could really benefit from this, you know, and even trimming some of it down, as long as they're not too excessive like they are in this one. And I know they probably did it due to the fact that it would be so time consuming and cost so much money to colorize the whole thing. I am aware of that, but something like the Web Planet or even the Sensorites could really benefit from that. They're definitely drags in places. I think either one of those stories would be a perfect candidate for a Hartnell. For Troughton, I would personally love to see the invasion, but unfortunately 2 episodes are missing and I can't see them doing that one, but like, it would look so gorgeous seeing the Cybermen rise up out of the sewers marching down the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral in full colour. I think the Mind Robber, there's a lot of potential there that you can do with the colorization, a lot of creative liberties you could take, you know, being set in the entire land of fiction. But let me know your picks in the comments below. If you would like to follow me on my socials, I will leave the links in the description down below. I would greatly appreciate if you could give the video a like. And as always, you've been watching another Whoview video. I hope to see you next time, but bye for now.